Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So the topic is economic development. This is the mandate. What is economic development? Theories of development, and so on. So we begin with noting something that is not very well known. And that is that the meanings of development have varied drastically over time. When my father used to go to school in colonial India, he was taught that the power belongs to those countries who have sea power, basically. And they have to have coal mines in order to have energy. And they have to have a cold climate because people cannot think very clearly, warm. And they have to have an indented coastline in order to enable the sea ports. So ultimately, after you put two and two together, you find that there's only one great power in the world, and that's England. In the 1930s, if you look at Encyclopedia Britannica, there is no entry for the word democracy. But England didn't believe in democracy. They had an aristocratic system. But after the First World War destroyed, basically, the period between World War I and World War II is the transition from England to USA in terms of world power. So when USA became the world power, then they redefined the meaning of development to suit them. So, for the first time, wealth, which was considered a crass measure by the British, became the criteria for development. Democracy was considered to be a very good thing because the US was democratic. So, then sometime later, the oil economies, there were only a very few people and wealth was massive. So these economies, Qatar for example, became world leader in GNP per capita. But then they said, well, obviously GNP per capita is not the right measure. So what we need is to have a good income distribution. It can't be that only one person has all the money and everybody else is poor. So that would not qualify as development. So then they said you have to have a good income distribution. Then what happened was that Switzerland and some Scandinavian countries overtook the USA in GNP per capita. And they also had a very nice income distribution. So again we had to think, what is the criteria for development so that USA will come out on top? And so they said, well, it has to be infrastructure. So the US is a huge country, much bigger than Sweden and Switzerland. So if you look at the number of roads and bridges and dams, and then there is no beating the USA. So now with the infrastructure, then USA will be again the leader. The criteria were redefined to match what the leader wanted. So after the World War II, Turkey was on the wrong side, and also Japan was on the wrong side, and they had economies which were badly damaged by the war. So now they had to decide on a model for development. So the leaders of Japan said that we got defeated in the war because we are behind in technology, we are behind in mathematics. So what the Japanese did, they sent their lots of students to study engineering, medicine, mathematics, physics, chemistry, and so on. They sent huge numbers of Japanese students to Europe and to America. And they also translated all of the books, all the technical books, the engineering books and the medical books and the chemical books and so on, into Japanese. So these were two crucial steps. At the same time, Turkey was also trying to decide what to do. And they said that, we are backward because we are culturally inferior. So Ataturk passed a law that every Turk must dress in pants and coat and tie, and they cannot wear these head gear. Some of the imams who resisted, they were hanged because they said that you have to wear a hat. The women had to wear skirts. The skirts were not quite Islamic, so the soldiers went around in the streets and cut off the long cloaks of the women so as to make them resemble skirts. Ataturk had a ministry set up for ballet. So he taught the Turks how to dance. And he had a ministry set up for music. And they taught the Turks, they still have symphony, orchestra, these ministries are still in existence. And they translated a lot of English novels into the Turkish. So now sometime in the 90s, late 90s I think, or early 2000s, Japan overtook the USA in GNP per capita. But Turkey is still behind most European countries. So the model we follow for development is important. It sets the agenda. If you choose the right path, you can achieve a great deal. If you choose the wrong path, you can do a lot of damage. So it does matter to have the right definition of development. Now, before I start telling you what development is, I would like to ask about what the audience thinks that what is development. So maybe I can ask a question about what is the meaning. Yes, please.
I'm having some comments on this too. Development is increasing per capita GDP in addition to development of the concerned institutions.
Institutional development and GDP per capita, yes.
Economic development goes beyond economic growth. It also means economic growth and which is balanced and distributed amongst the people. It means balanced economic development.
Okay, so we have growth with poverty concerned, yes, income distribution.
Branch of the question. Development means better HDI, human development index.
Oh, right. So we are thinking more than just development.
That's from the segregated group. Human resource development.
Achha, human resource development. So we have two human resources. Very good. Mullah Nasruddin was invited to give a lecture at Juma, so he said that, does anybody know what I am going to say? Everybody professed ignorance. So he said that, oh, such an ignorant round, I won't talk to you. He went back. So the next time he came around, the people were prepared. He said, do you know what I am going to say? Yes, we know. Okay, then there's no need for me to talk. So the third time he came, then some people said, yes, we know, and the other people said, we don't know. So he said, okay, let those who know tell the people who don't know. So, now the current priorities of development are that economic growth is everything. And once growth occurs, it will trickle down. So, all our efforts should be focused on increasing the amount of wealth, and all of these other considerations, having a balanced income distribution or human development, all of these will follow once you have the money to do it. This is the standard paradigm which is currently being followed all over the world. Now, Google actually implemented this theory in Pakistan in the 1960s. together with the Harvard group. This was the standard economic theory of development, and it remains the standard economic theory of development. So what happened? Well, although this was proclaimed as the decade of development, and the growth rate did actually increase quite a lot, all of the fruits of the growth went to the 22 families, the famous 22 families that Google have listed. And so they were not enjoyed by the population as a whole. Same thing happened in Russia when IMF and World Bank implemented growth-oriented policies. There were millions of people who were eating before they became malnourished and started starving, and many billionaires were created at the same time. The same results occurred in Chile when, under General Pinochet, Chicago boys and freedmen, Milton Friedman, got a chance to implement his policies. And from a very nice and stable and income distribution, the country became very unequal in terms of income distribution. So Mahbub-ul-Haq learned from his experience, and actually he was the one who created the Human Development Index, which two of the audience mentioned. This has, in addition to GNP per capita, it has education and health also. Health is measured in terms of life expectancy. And actually, these criteria are very important because politicians target these criteria. If tomorrow the Shehzad will go and say that I have achieved 4.5% growth, and so I must be counted as a successful person. Or the newspaper will say that he is saying this, but actually the growth is only 2%, so it's bad. Now, actually, if the criteria of growth is not GNP per capita, then this is an irrelevant debate. And this is the truth actually, that GNP per capita is not a good target. If we were to say how much malnutrition is there in Pakistan, let that be your target. If that was suppose that we had only one criterion, that was malnutrition, then if this was important, if this was in the press, then the politicians would be forced to pay attention to this. People would say in the newspaper, look, he has been in the government for 1 year and malnutrition has gone from 46% to 52%, then they will pay attention and it will change. So it's not that these things are just numbers which don't matter. Actually, they have a much more important role than we realize. And so if somebody was saying that, okay, the only thing which matters is having jobs for the whole country, so our criteria for development should be unemployment. So did you produce jobs for all the people? If that is so, then that's great. You're doing a good job, and if not, then you're doing a bad job. Health, education, etc. These were all ignored in the standard GNP per capita measure. And this is something which has been, this was actually, Mahbub-ul-Haq has played a very significant role in making the world realize this. And his Human Development Index has had some important contribution in increasing sensitivity to this. So actually Mahbub-ul-Haq went through 3 phases of thinking. The second was that, okay, the first phase was GNP per capita only. The second was that, okay, we need to take into account both GNP per capita and also pay attention to health, education and welfare. In the third phase, he actually changed from even that based on his experience, and he said that there is this one small sentence which has a depth of meaning. Human beings are the means and the ends of development. This is a quote from Mahbub-ul-Haq. So, and it has a lot of meaning, which I will try to explain in greater depth later. So, the conventional wisdom is that human beings are resources. We have this human resource, and we use human beings in order to produce wealth for the nation. And wealth is the criteria. So if we can get all our people to produce a lot of wealth, then we have progress. And also, we can't pay attention to this human development and poverty and nutrition and social programs because they will distract from the production of wealth. our first job is to produce a lot of wealth, then we distribute it to the people. And so social welfare programs are a burden on the budget because they prevent us from putting up industries and factories and doing all the things that are needed to achieve development. Now, in contrast to this, Mahbubul Haq and later on Amartya Sen, who learned a lot from Mahbubul Haq. In fact, Mrs. Mahbubul Haq was very resentful that Amartya Sen has gotten the Nobel Prize when he learned everything from Mahbubul Haq. But anyway, these things are hard to decide. But anyway, both of them have strongly committed themselves to an alternative paradigm for development. It's an entirely different view, which I'm going to try to explain to you in this talk. So instead of thinking of human beings as a means to produce wealth, we think of wealth as a means to produce human beings. Wealth is a resource not useful for itself. It is something which is meant to bring satisfaction into lives of people. So if you are having people, and this is encapsulated by the Bhutan National Happiness Index, that the only thing really matters is whether people are happy or not. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If the money is not making people happy, then it's useless. So we should measure the measure of development is happiness. If the wealth is being used correctly, then it will provide happiness to the people. If it is not, then it will create unhappiness. And so the measure, the goal, you see, wealth is always and only a means to an end. So why measure the means? Why not measure the end? So that's one part of the reversal of paradigm, which has not been taken on board. I mean, most people don't think this way, and planning is not being done according to these ideas, even though it should be. So then the means and end means that instead of saying that we should produce wealth and give it to the people, you make the people, you provide ways for the people to lead lives of dignity and worth, and they will produce the wealth. So instead of thinking of social welfare as a burden on the budget, which will prevent us from developing, social welfare is the heart of development. If we provide if we allow people to lead good lives, they will do all the tasks that is needed to produce the wealth that we are trying to do. So we have got everything backwards in the in the conventional paradigm. So today the fact of the matter is that wrong development theories are firmly embedded in minds of people, in the university books. They are being taught. The policymakers are following these idiotic ideas, and the result of this is that we have disastrous results. This is not a long-standing development. Actually, you can trace the change to 1980s. When I was going to graduate school in 1970s, the development paradigm was different, and in 1980s it became different. In the 1970s, the Chicago school was considered as a crackpot. Our teachers used to laugh at those people. In 1980s, they became respectable and dominant, and the Keynesian school, which was dominant before the 80s, went into disrepute, and people said, "Oh, Keynesian, who knows about that stuff anymore?" So, as a result, there has been extremely rapid. So the whole the main idea of this so-called free market and laissez-faire economics, privatization, a lot of terminology which are taken as holy names and everybody pays a lot of respect to them. All of them have only one purpose behind them, and that is to increase the concentration of wealth. And because these theories have been running rampant, there has been an amazingly rapid concentration of the wealth in the top. In 2010, these are the statistics from Oxfam, 380 people only owned half of the wealth of this planet. But in 2015, this number was reduced to 62. The top 100 people have more wealth than the bottom 3.5 billion. And in this past 5 years, there has been $7 trillion which went from the poorest countries to the richest countries in official flows, and people calculate another 7 trillion in unofficial flows by, sneaky means used by multinationals to hide their taxes and earnings and transfer them. So 14 trillion going from the poorest countries in the world to the richest countries in the world. Similarly, well, okay, that's statistics. So now, what is the point of going over all this? I mean, maybe the world is the way it is and it will keep on. And so, what can you and I do by learning this except to grit our teeth and be sad? So the fact is actually things are not that much written in stone. And if you look at social change process, you find that it only takes a few individuals with some dream and some vision and some passion to change the world. So actually, if you look at the world, we have been brought up in a world in which materialism is rampant. By materialism, I don't mean the love of dunya, which is one aspect of materialism. I mean that the idea that materials determine outcomes and progress. Materials determine history. So if Pakistan wants to produce, to progress, we need to get technology, we need to put up industries, factories and this and that, and material goods will help us to progress. This is entirely false if you look at history. It is always ideas which have changed the world. The atom bomb came into existence because of a vision of some physicists that there can be a lot of power inside a very small atom, E equals mc squared. Karl Marx had a vision. He saw the conditions in England. He saw that the laborers are very heavily exploited by the capitalists. And he said one day these people will revolt and they will create a system in which everybody has according to his need. This idea by itself, without any funding, without any weapons, changed the 20th century. All China and Russia were inspired by this idea and history changed. Of course, the greatest example is that of our own Prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He came to the desert, there were no material means, but the ideas that he brought changed the course of human history and are affecting us till today. So, so the main point of this, it would not be necessary to make, but the thing is that we have all been brainwashed into materialism, that ideas are very powerful, important, they change lives. And these are not things which require material resources. Before we need factories and industries and technology, we need ideas. The right ideas can change the course of history. We only live once. So if we live with the wrong ideas, our ideas determine the world we live in. This is very important because we are used to thinking of it other way. The life I live is determined by bricks and stones and the architecture and the food. It actually, that's part of it. Definitely nobody can walk through walls. But if you think, what is the world we live in? We live in a world in which there was World War I, World War II, there was Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Iraq invasion. All of these are ideas. We never saw any of these things. So the world that I live in, the history, my history, Prophet Muhammad came up and the Arabs went through the world and Ashoka in India and Sikandar-e-Azam and so on. All of these are ideas. We never saw these. So a large portion of the world that I live in, even something which people find very surprising, Pakistan is just an idea. It doesn't have any physical reality. If today the whole world agreed that today, from now on, we'll all live together as brothers and sisters and there will be no nations in the world, the nations would cease to exist. So Pakistan is just an idea in our minds. It doesn't exist as a physical reality. If human beings were wiped out, nobody would be able to find out that where was Pakistan and where was India. Because there are no lines drawn on the desert. So, that is the thing that we as human beings have a huge amount of potential. Allah Ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that if you save one life, it is as if you save the whole planet. So what this is referring to is the fact that every human being has the potential to create extraordinary amount of change. And so the illusion that I am an ordinary person, I can do nothing, I am unable to affect change, this is actually the source of a big problem. The reality is that every human being is unique. The person that I am and the person that you are, there has never been another one in the whole universe like it, ever, before and ever after. Everyone has been gone through a process, a life experience which nobody else will ever have. So, similarly, every moment is precious. This moment of time that we are living in, it will never happen again. This can never be recreated tomorrow or yesterday. So we have to learn these things which are going exactly opposite of what is the dominant training. You see that? So now we ask, so suppose that we empower ourselves and we say that, okay, I have the power to change the world, then what would I do? So that's the question. Maybe I will cause a lot of damage by pursuing wrong programs. So what are the goals which are worth striving for? Because Allah Ta'ala says that لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. You can only have that which you strive for. And our Allama Iqbal has said, "Tu hi naadna chal kaidiyon par qanaat kar liya, warna gulshan mein ilaje tangi ulama kiya." So this is a very deep share. First of all, that the world doesn't change because we set our ambitions too low. I'm a professor, so I often ask my students that, okay, what's your mission in life? What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to achieve? So I haven't, mostly people say that, I'm not a very ambitious person. If I can get married, have children, have food for the family and provide, I don't want a palace, just an ordinary house will do. And get my daughters married, sons educated. What more does a man want? So if we set our ambitions to be dal roti, then this is what we will get. And if we set our ambitions to change the world, then that's what we will get. So the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, they had a mission. They were out to change the world, and they did. And today we don't have a mission. We just want to make sure that our kitchen is functioning. So this is what the result will be. So the results, if you want Chand Kanya, then that's what we will get. But the Gulshan has a lot of things. And what Iqbal is saying is rather deep here. Ilaje Tangiye Dama bhi hai. What is Tangiye Dama referring to here? Does anybody know the meaning of this?
It's the mental capacity.
Absolutely. That we have, even our narrow vision, our being satisfied with very small things, even this can be solved. God can change our vision from something very lowly to a very high one, if we just ask Him. So, there is something very unique that happened in the world 1400 years ago, 1437 years ago. This event, the backwards Arabs, they were backwards in everything. If you want to understand what development is, we have to study how development happened in the world. These people, if you look at, people have looked at, traced the history. Say, Nadwi has written a history of the times at that time. So you had the Roman Empire, you had the Indian, Persians, Egypt, China. They had advanced technologies, literature, philosophy, technology. They had many culture. But Arabs had nothing. They were well in the desert. They had primitive lifestyles, no philosophy, no books. Suddenly, in 30 years, they became the leaders of the world, and it was not a flash in the pan. Many people, Alexander the Great conquered the world, but when he died, then his empire disappeared with him. But these people, they established an empire which lasted for 1,000 years. It was not just an empire of power, it was an empire of ideas which became infiltrated through the planet. So, people talk about European Enlightenment, but unfortunately, the way history has been written, Muslims have been written out of history. And actually there was a recent book, The Theft of History, which explains exactly this, that how did Europe become developed? Europe was the most backward place on the planet. In fact, when Ibn Khaldun was writing, he said that, oh, these people, they will never develop. They are in such bad shape. So, today they say that about us. So, how did they develop? Well, Spain, Islamic Spain was the most advanced civilization on the planet of its time, and all the Europeans came to the madrasas of Spain, and all of the leading, for 1 century in Europe, Arabic was the leading intellectual language. In the Oxford Library, there's a whole section of Arabic books, and the translations of Arabic texts in medicine and in science and physics, they were used in Europe for a century or more. So, that's how the Enlightenment came to Europe. So, the question is that, how did this change happen? Now, the great surprise is that today, we are teaching in our economics department, Rostow's theories of development. What is Rostow? Well, Rostow analyzed how England came from nowhere. In a course of about 300 years, they became world leaders. So he divided the journey of England into 7 stages. That first we did this, then we did that. So this 7th stage of development is being taught in universities. But nobody teaches. So if we study this very carefully and we follow those lessons, in 300 years we will become just as developed as England, assuming that the theory is right, of course. Which it is not, because we don't have the chance to go and colonize the whole world, unfortunately. So, following the pattern of England is not a feasible strategy for us for development. But nobody is studying. There are no courses on how the Arabs became the leaders of the world in 30 years. So, the fact that the Muslims achieved a miracle in development is acknowledged 100%. Nobody denies that. That's a historical fact. But the dispute is on the following point. This is a very important point. The Europeans and the current Western traditions say that that was a time-bound formula for success. It was a wonderful thing, but it was adapted to its own time and place and suitable for that period. That formula will not work today. Today, if you want to succeed, you have to follow our formula, which is to study chemistry, biology, physics, and whatever you do, just do whatever we tell you to do. That's the formula for this. So the other point of view is that this formula is still as valid as it was 1437 years ago. After Allah Ta'ala says that Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam deena. He said that I have perfected my favor upon you and made this deen kamil. It's complete, perfect. It will be enough for you, for your needs for all time. It will not become obsolete with the passage of time. So, unfortunately, today Muslims are not believing this. So, Muslims believe that Islam is obsolete, and now we need new modern techniques in order to develop. So, what is development? We have discussed this, that the standard paradigm is that it's accumulation of wealth. Human lives and everything is subordinate to the production of wealth. So we can destroy forests, we can kill the oceans by dumping pollution into them, we can create an environmental catastrophe. As long as we are producing wealth, this is a good thing. You don't count that actually over the past 10 years, more species have been destroyed than occurred in the past 100,000 years. And once a species of animals is gone, it's gone forever. It cannot be recreated at any cost. And similarly, biodiversity, flora, fauna, many types of the industrial processes which are creating a lot of wealth are destroying the planet. Why? Because everything is only worth the gold that it can produce. As opposed to this, we have an alternative conception of development, that it is the enrichment of human lives. It is the use of wealth to feed, clothe and house everyone. One very interesting thing which is not known these days because we don't know our history is that in Islamic history throughout there was no conception of paying for education or paying for health services. It was understood by everybody that all the children in our society are our children. Just like I don't ask my child to pay me to teach him, so it is my responsibility to make sure that every child in Pakistan has an education. And that it doesn't require that only the rich children get to education and only those who can pay for it. This conception. Similarly for health services. The sick person is not responsible for his disease and the society is supposed to. And this was achieved. This was by the use of waqf. The waqf was the institution which was used to finance education on a large scale and also to provide health services on a large scale. And everybody participated to ensure that everybody paid their fair share. So, there were many revolutions that were brought by Islam in terms of ways of thinking, what is development and how we can get there. And these have all been forgotten by Muslims. Prophet ﷺ said that Islam came as a stranger and it will become a stranger. And this is what has happened. So basically today the thinking that we see all over the world is outcome oriented. How can I achieve something? How can Pakistan achieve certain goals? So there is a goal out there which we don't have. So we are currently not in a good position. Then we imagine this is true both in terms of nationally at the macro level, also individually for ourselves as people. We also think that there is an ideal state. I would be grade 20 or I would have a big house, I will have a Toyota or so on. These are the things that I need. So there is an imagined state. And if you don't have that, then you are in failing. You are, and so now I want to achieve a certain outcome in order to be counted as a success. Now the problem is that the outcome-oriented thinking that was described by Prophet ﷺ, that if you give a man one mountain of gold, he will want another one. So you never are satisfied. Once you achieve the outcome that you are looking for, you look for the more outcome. Allah Ta'ala says, Al-Hakumut Takasaru Hatta Zurtumul Maqabir, that you will say a little bit more and a little bit more. I will just need, just like the mirage, you go towards it and looking for water, but when you reach it, then it has moved ahead. So instead of thinking about what is the goal and how to get there, Islam teaches us process-oriented thinking. Seek for success in this moment. How can I be successful right now? Right now I am a human being, I have many choices in front of me. How can I make the one choice that is the good one, the one that will bring me to, that will take me to the development of that potential which is inside every human being. Every human being is built with tremendous potential. So, in the dominant paradigm today, this is what Americans say, winners talk and losers walk. This world is about winning and losing. If you win, you can do whatever you like. If you lose, you just disappear from the stage. So, and all is fair in love and war. So if you can do whatever you like to win. There's no, you can, if you have to kill 40 million people, destroy a whole country, it's okay. As long as you win, winners, that's all that matters. There is no morality in the constraint of the, as opposed to this, So this is outcome-oriented thinking, as opposed to this process-oriented thinking. It's how you play the game that matters, not whether you win or lose. So today, that way of thinking has disappeared. It used to be there, but it is being very much suppressed. So, what can I do to create change? And it's the process of struggling which matters, not the outcome. Whether we Ghazi ya Shaheed, it doesn't matter. It's the actual, it's the struggle which counts. So the journey is what matters, not the arrival. So this is what Iqbal has said, that tu rehna wal shauq hai manzil na kar qabool, Laila bhi hum nashi hu to mahmil na kar qabool. So instead of setting external goals for ourselves, that the big house and the big job, we have to, the Islam taught us to set internal goals. How can I become a better person? Instead of thinking about how to change the world, how can I change myself? Now the strange thing and paradoxical thing is that if everybody changes himself, the world will change. But as long as we try to change the world, nothing will change, because the world consists of human beings. So unless human beings are changing, the world cannot change. So when we focus on how to change the whole world, then we say, I'm too small, I'm too little, I'm too unimportant, I cannot do anything. So you give up and then you waste your life. So Iqbal says it's too big, the task is too difficult. Iqbal says कि खोया न जा सनम कदे कायनात में महफिल बदाज गर्मी महफिल न करो कबूल. And you are the one who creates the conversation. Don't be a participant. Don't be a looker in the game. Don't be a spectator in the game. You are a player. The spectators, they're just watching the game. No, you are not a spectator. You are a part of the game. So go and play. You are the one who creates the method. So now when you change the goal from external to internal, you say, okay, how can I bring about change in my life and in the life of those people near me? And you see, if everyone changes the lives of 10 people, Pakistan will change. But तो कांपता है दिल तेरा अंदेशे तूफान से नाखुदा तू बहर तू किश्ती भी तू साहिल भी तू. You are everything. You are the universe. मल्लाह भी और समुंदर भी और किश्ती भी और साहिल भी. Everything is contained within you. So the change, the potential to change, the power to change, everything is inside you. You are looking outside for what is to be found inside you. So development is human development, and this is the paradigm that led Islam to the world leadership. The Prophet ﷺ took these ordinary people and made them into extraordinary people, and these people then changed the world. And this we have seen with our own eyes, because today when you talk about this, people say, this is idealistic talk, this is romantic, cannot be done. But that's why the examples are there in front of our eyes. It was done, and it has been done many times in history. So economic paradigm teaches us that lives can be bought and sold. And in fact, I often tell my students this, that you are trained to think of yourself as an object. You will get a degree, then you will be placed on the market for sale to the highest bidder. If somebody offers you 100,000, you will say, oh good. And you get a multinational job, and you get in multinational, then you will say, oh wonderful, what more can I ask for? But what you have to learn is that this is a lie. You are being deceived. Not all the gold in the planet cannot buy one human being. You are selling yourself cheap. Human beings are infinitely precious. So today the obstacles to development for Pakistan are the illusion of foreign expertise. We are accepting models which are being imposed upon us, that this is what you have to do. You have to privatize, you have to have FDI, you have to increase your taxes, you have to do this, that and the other. But actually, so this foreign expertise, see my economic students, they face it all the time, that there are these huge books and they contain a lot of math. I haven't learned enough in order to be able to say anything, so I just copy what the masters are saying. So this learned helplessness, that I am not smart enough to analyze my own problems. So if I want to solve the problem in Pakistan, I have to bring in a foreign expert because we are too stupid. We are black people. We can't think. So we can't think of our own problems. So we have to ask somebody else to come and find out what the problems are and tell us what the solution is. We are too stupid for this. So now, unfortunately, this doesn't work because, there's this book by Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. They are all too happy to come in and give us advice. But they give us the advice which helps them, not us. That's why the $7 trillion is going from the poorest countries of the world to the richest countries of the world. So today, bad ideas are dominant in the world. Eugene Fama is a famous economist. He developed the theory of rational expectations, which says that the stock market prices are always correct, reflection of the information. Because of this, lots of warnings were given in the USA that the stock market is overinflated, we should do something before the collapse happens. But the senior level people, Bernanke, Greenspan, who were at the head of the Federal Reserve, and other senior economists, Lawrence Summers, they said, no, this is nonsense. Our theories say that this cannot happen. So, as a result, the global financial crisis happened. No measures were taken. They could have been taken, but they didn't. Now, the failure of theory was so obvious that the Queen of England said that to London School of, she went to London School of Economics, why did you guys not tell me that some crisis is going to happen? So they were embarrassed, they had nothing to say, the economists at London School of Economics. The US Congress appointed a committee to investigate why economics failed, economic theory failed to provide us with a warning. But there were no answers given. Now what is very strange is that what happened next? You see, okay, first of all they failed. But Fama was given a Nobel Prize afterwards, after the Nobel. Bernanke was reappointed, even though he was, many people think that he is responsible. He was there, the head of the Federal Reserve for during the global financial crisis. And he was reappointed. And people are still praising him that he acted courageously. And he has also written a book called The Courage to Act, in which he says that I took the actions which were necessary to save the world. Never mentioning that it was he who caused the collapse. Now, the World Bank has, you see, after the collapse of Russia, the US model for development became popular all over the world. It was called the Washington Consensus, and it was tried in the 90s extensively all over the world, and it failed extensively. And the the World Bank wrote a book in 1993 evaluating the growth of 90s. And it admitted, the introduction admits that we were not successful. And it says that we don't know the formulas for growth. And maybe we should be humble. And maybe we should try to think of what can be done. And Stiglitz said that, look, what they have done is, they have one size fits all. Here are these 10 policies. You apply them. Whether it's Pakistan, isn't it logical that if we want to make a development plan for Pakistan, we should know something about what Pakistan has, what our resources are, what our weaknesses are, what our strengths are, what are the opportunities that we can find? No. The Washington Consensus had 10 policies which are blanket applicable. It doesn't matter whether it's Pakistan or India or Chile or Argentina or Nigeria. Now, obviously it failed. But the strange thing is, the Washington Consensus has been revamped. Okay, Washington Consensus 10 policies failed. Now we will try 20 policies. Now we have a 20 policy new Washington Consensus, which will be discovered to be a failure 10 years later. And it's more or less the same thing. Now, as contrast to this, the East Asian miracle, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, these countries did something tremendous. For 30 years, they achieved 7% growth rate without fail, year after year. This is the secret to success, which many people have remarked. It's not that Pakistan achieved higher than 7% in some years, but less in others. So erratic performance doesn't work. Also in Hadith, that if you do a little bit, but sustainedly, then you will get a lot further than if you are erratic. And sometimes you do a lot and sometimes you don't. Now the strange thing is that no East Asian economist has gotten a Nobel Prize, even though they accomplished a miracle which everybody acknowledges. No Japanese economist, they became the richest country of the world coming from zero. They have never received a Nobel Prize. Many countries, Japan, Brazil, Germany, they have a lot of important insights about the development process. These insights are not taught in the books, and these are not mentioned, and they are not mentioned in our universities. We don't teach these things. So it's very strange. I mean, the bad ideas are dominating and powerful and are being taught everywhere. The good ideas are invisible. So I'm going to conclude. The time is nearly up, and basically there are two. The conventional view says that if you want to grow, want to achieve development, you have to minimize consumption and maximize investment. The more you invest in the future, this makes a lot of sense. The more you invest in the future, the more you will grow. And if you eat your product, then you will not be able to invest it, so you won't be able to grow. But this is a very serious misunderstanding. This is what happened. This is the policy that was applied by Mahbubullah in his phase 1 when he didn't have experience. The Islamic strategy says that consumption can be broken into two parts. There is israf, excess, and there is essential consumption. Essential consumption is essential for growth. If you don't feed your people, you're not going to have your workers. Who is going to be the driver of growth? So feeding your people, providing them with social standards, this is an essential part of growth, because your people are they are the central engine of growth. So take care of your people, but don't do israf. Today we are having a lot of consumption, huge amount of consumption, but all of it is israf while people are starving. This is something Islam does not allow, it does not like. But unfortunately, this is what the current system encourages. At the same time, investment also is not all the same. Again, this is on both of these points that I am mentioning, the Islamic view is radically different from what is currently being taught in economics textbooks. In economics textbook, all investment is equally good, but actually investment in land, investment in stocks, they are unproductive investment. They call it inflation in the prices, but they don't bring out any productive activity. So if you invest in factories, this is good, but if you invest in stocks and land, this is bad. So you have to encourage good investment and discourage bad investment. So again, both of these things are not done correctly in the conventional economic view. One of the implications of this is that we should lead simple lifestyles, because the extravagance is harmful, because every money that is not spent on investment, either in the people or in the factories, this is money wasted towards development. And today, if you look at the amount of israf going on in Pakistan, it's tremendous. You could probably feed all the population in Pakistan out of the excess consumption. So, basically one major problem that we have is that we have not been able to create a transition from the colonial mindset to the independent mindset. The colonial mindset was that basically the England set up a colony. There was only one purpose of this colony. All the institutional structure was designed to extract revenue from India and take it to England. Everything was openly and clearly and explicitly designed for this single purpose. The police force was not designed to provide a service to the citizen. It was designed to make sure that people don't rebel. And similarly, the justice system was not to provide justice to the people. It was to make sure that the decree of the government would be enforced. So, unfortunately, what happened was after some time, the politicians, when we gained control, politicians realized that we have this machine in our hands, and it is a great machine for pumping money out of the people. And so politics it can be a game in which a party says that we are going to try to serve the people, but in fact the game became one of sharing the spoils. Here is a lot of revenue which is coming out, and so the different parties, they say, okay, we have to have our share. This is the goal of politics. Instead of being to serve the people, became to be a participant in the revenue which is generated by this colonial machine. Now we need to change this mindset. The bureaucrat thinks of himself as a little lord, Brown Babu, because he is part of the government. The government is of basically Gora people even now. The bureaucrat is one of the brown sahibs, and he is different from the people. The awam is beneath contempt. This is the colonial mindset. As opposed to this, I mean, in the police force there was actually a movement. One of the police people was saying that let us change this conception. Let's change from a police force to a police service. This involves rethinking, changing our mindset. That we are here to serve the people. We are to provide security and service and make sure that their house is not robbed and make sure that they're... So we should be servants of the people. This is actually the concept of Islam, that the leader of the people is the servant of the people. Even now, though it's only in name, but the king of Saudi Arabia calls himself the Khadim of Arman Sharitani, and the servant of the holy mosques. So, but the name is there, but the form has gone. So, to make change, to create the change, to create the development that we want, the mindset needs to be changed. We need to think ourselves as servants of the people rather than as rulers of the people. So there is no lack of resources for development, and Pakistan is very richly endowed. We don't need any foreign aid. We don't need any foreign investment in order to develop. Everything is there. Allah Ta'ala has given us. All we need to do is change our mindset, change our priorities, and get rid of these misconceptions. We change our life from an orientation where I am greedy and I want everything for myself to a life of service. I live to serve the people. Allah Ta'ala has given a great deal of emphasis to service. We need to reorient our education. We need to think, how can we provide an education to all of the children in Pakistan? If that one thing was done, it would be enough to change the nation. Because there's so many geniuses out there in the crowd of children. I have seen them. They are such brilliant children. We just don't give them the chance to perform. If we did, they would change the nation. They would create rocket ships and whatever we are looking for. They have the genius in them, but if they don't get food to eat, how can they do anything for us? So provide health and education to everybody and let them bring the change, the development that we are seeking. So, but these are tough requirements. We need good, honest, sincere people who wish to serve. They don't ask for anything for themselves. Allah Ta'ala says, there's a very nice verse in the Quran that you serve the people, but you don't ask them even for their gratitude. I don't even want your thanks. I will take from Allah. If you do that, then something very strange happens. That Allah Ta'ala gives you so much more than what anybody else can give you. That you are amazed that why do I ask people to give me things when Allah Ta'ala can give me? So this is the thing that we have been raised by in the colonial environment, which was made by the crows are the ones who eat dead meat. So we are looking after dead meat. When in us there is the potential to soar. And so life is not about getting money and getting power and getting fame, which is what is the current target. And life is short, it will end. We only have one chance. Lots of people will be asking Allah that, oh Allah, now I have understood, give me the second chance. But there will be no second chances. So the circumstances we face are our training grounds. These are difficult circumstances. Very hard to be honest here. It's very hard to serve here because everybody is against this. But this This is what we will create. This is the challenge that we have been put in to test us. I am being tested and you are being tested. To see, in this circumstance, can my servant perform? And you have been given, Allah Ta'ala has guaranteed us that He has given us the resources to do what is needed. So nobody is being tested beyond his limits. So I